All right. If this went the way yesterday went, it's going to work the first time. And that would be amazing. Good morning, everybody. Let us see if we were successful. Oh my goodness, we were! I'm so excited. Yay, internet! This is now 4 for 4 that I appear to have gotten right the first time. This might be the start of something pretty magical. Let me be excited about that for a moment. So I live streamed for a bit last night and was working on the partner map that goes along with the map that's on the table right now. I was doing a whole bunch of geographic texturing last night. Oh, I just realized I don't have my lamp on. There we go. And so I have basically gotten this map to the point where I'm pretty content with the texturing that's on it. I've been speaking with the commissioner, and we're going to take all of the lettering out using Photoshop, and we're going to be putting in a more regular font. The hand lettering is just not working out quite the way we want it to. Part of that is I was going through a medication transition at the time, and so things just aren't as consistent as I want them to be. And that's not as noticeable with the organic lines that make up the map and the details of the map. It is far more noticeable with the font, however. So I'm perfectly content to take that all out and add that in using a computer program. I think it's going to really make things look very, very polished. So excited about that. So this is the map of Kreia. This is the map of Karnad, which will be the other map that goes together with this book series. And you can't probably see the line work very well in the camera because it's just 2H pencil right now. But today I'm going to be inking it. So as you watch, you'll be able to kind of see the process of me going through and doing that. And hopefully we'll make a whole bunch of progress today. That would be great. And then I can add the lettering in with Photoshop the same as the other one just to match it all up. This is going to be a little bit of a different workflow for me because generally when I'm working with lettering first, I put the lettering in first. It's the first thing I lay down on the map so that everything has the spacing that I want. And it's easier to have that in place because you don't want to try to crowd your wording in after you've drawn everything else. It just makes for things that look rushed and not as professional as they could. But because I'm going to be doing the lettering in Photoshop, I have a lot more freedom with that because you can just do so much editing in the program without having to kind of mess with it. So to get started, I am going to grab my 01 micron and I'm just going to start going over the major lines. And then from there, I'll start adding line weight and darkening them and that kind of thing. So in order to kind of help follow everything along, I'm going to start with my coastline so that people can have a better idea of what we're looking at from the camera angle. One of the things that I've learned with coastlines is that you really need to keep your hand loose. The tighter you hold your pen and the more rigid you're holding your hand, the more human your coastline is going to look. And if you want something that looks more natural, you really want to kind of just loosen up and let the pen kind of wiggle, go where it wants to go. Within reason. This is actually a weird skill to kind of develop. It took me some time to get comfortable with the mix of like tension and control I needed to kind of get the effect that I was after. And it's okay if I'm not following the exact lineup of what I had with my pencil, as long as it still kind of matches the overall aesthetic that I was after. One of the things that I always try to pay attention to with my line work is that I'm dragging the pen instead of pushing the pen. It will really change the quality of your line. It'll make you more confident if you're dragging the pen as opposed to pushing it. It's also far, far easier on your pen nibs. This was something that I think instinctively I've always done. But it was brought to my attention in a concrete way watching a drawing video by Hankerin Furnail on the Runehammer channel. He does, or was doing, I don't know if he continues to do them, really incredible live streams for his drawing. And sometimes I'll just put them on and listen to them as I'm working because it's a bit like an art jam of my very own, which I dig. I always feel a little bit polka dot door when I look up and see people in the chat. It's like we've got Laura and Gary. That was polka dot door, right? With the mirror? Maybe only Canadian children will understand this reference. I don't know. Good morning, friends. Even if it's not just Canadian children, I've definitely just dated myself. There is a fly in my studio. It is not making me a happy person. I find that the summer is always terrible for flies here. It's such an odd thing to be perturbed by. Laura, you could pretend to be much younger than me. It's the internet. No one has to know. Is Justina with you? Saxon has been trying to catch flies, Gary, I promise. I don't know that he's having very much success with it, though. I didn't realize that I was doing it all the way back then. Although it makes sense that I would have been doing it on your hands for sure, because I wouldn't want to have jabbed you with anything. She's downstairs, hey. That kind of is a bummer. But I mean, your own workspace is nice. I like having my own workspace. So I'm just going to come in here and put in the rivers that I know I have. And I follow the same general hand tension kind of rule with rivers that I do with coastlines, just to help represent kind of the way that they wiggle in real life. Now I'm hearing it as Gollum. I blame you, Laura. Yes, of course I'm welcome. Alright, let's get the borders in here. Oh, I'm so glad. You just seemed a little bit off last night. I'm glad that hanging out was able to kind of help. I was definitely feeling a little bit lonely last night, so it was really good for me to be like, I have a solution for this, and the solution is the internet, in a way that's not going to make me a rage monkey. So I'm happy that you were able to join me, because that was really fortifying for me as well. Oh my goodness, this fly, you guys. Get off me. I wonder, like, how it is that I can, like, hit myself on something hard enough to give me bruises and not notice, but then as soon as a fly lands on me, I'm instantly squicked right out. Bodies are so weird. Oof. Having some tension in my hands today, that hasn't happened in a while. Not shakes, just tension in my palms. It's something I pay such close attention to because of my previous injuries. Oh, I guess that would make sense. I'm not terribly up on sciencey things, but I think everyone who knows me knows that. Like Sticks, hey, I'm sorry, babe. I'm hoping that passes soon. Alright. It's mountain time, which is my favorite time. I did some really great mountain work on the sister map that goes with this one. Honestly, I was really surprised at how well it turned out. I tried a couple new things for creating shapes in the actual stonework, and I really loved it. It made me very happy. Mountain daylight time. Did I post the wrong one? Because we're daylight still, aren't we? We don't turn back to standard until the fall. God, I hate living somewhere with daylight saving time. Let's just be honest about that right now. That was straight up one of my favorite things about Saskatchewan. Gary, you're not helping. I just remember Joanne calling me on that once. Being like, you got the wrong thing. I was like, oh no, people will not know how to find me. Now I'm paranoid about it. Well, paranoid's too strong of a word. Concerned. I definitely just want to make sure people can find me if they want to. The thing about it is it's not mountain standard if it's during the summer because Alberta shifts, right? Mountain standard only applies, I guess, when we're on sync with the rest of the world. No, I'm pretty sure it does, Laura. But I'd have to ask somebody who knows more. Or look it up. Um, Brass Birmingham, hey? I haven't tried doing a night map or a winter map. I think that it would be a good exercise for me to give it a try. Um, I know that I'm getting quite confident doing this style of map, so it might be a good time to kind of branch out and start challenging myself a little bit more. Not that these aren't a challenge, but I think at a certain point confidence kind of stops you from learning a little bit. Or at least learning something new because you get comfortable doing the thing that you're always confident in. Well, that's true for me. I don't know if that's true for other people. I was in one of my fantasy map making groups recently, and somebody was giving another member the gears for shading their mountains to the left. And I had never really considered that that might not be a thing. Like, I've always shaded my mountains to the left. And so I thought it was really an odd thing to be grinding someone about. But then I looked at a lot of maps, and I guess people shade them to the right all the time. I think I'm going to continue doing it because I like the aesthetic of mine. But it was interesting. It was just something that I had not yet noticed. I do not calculate time based on pickle consumption, but I have to tell you my pickle consumption has gone up a lot now that I'm eating this way. So good for electrolytes. I am a morning map person? What do you mean? I don't understand your comment, Laura. Can you elaborate for me? Oh, I don't know that I've thought it through that much. Um, I would be interested to know if it's a right brain, left brain thing. I imagine Bianca could tell us more than anyone because she does that kind of research. She just got funding for a super cool project. I'm very excited for her. Looking forward to seeing the outcomes. Okay. I just wanted to check and make sure that I had done this heavier ridge work line on the other map too, so that they coordinate better. And I did, so that works. So normally I'd be connecting these mountain ranges going east-west, but there's a river that flows through them that I'm going to want to illustrate coming down. So I needed to leave the breaks in the lines in order to do that, just in case anybody is wondering about that decision. I have a terrible habit of working right to left when I'm inking things, and given that I'm right-handed, that isn't the smartest because I'm more likely to smear my ink. I am super grateful that the combination of these pens and this paper doesn't tend to cause me problems when I sabotage myself like that. I have not had a request like that, Gary. I've thought about doing it for myself. I have the world map that I built for Halcyon, and I have it as a flat display right now, kind of as if the globe had been cut into triangles and to be able to be laid flat. I actually built it into a D20 so that I could roll it like it was a sphere, or as close to a sphere as I could get. But I've never tried doing something as if it was literally spherical. I know that there's someone in my mapping group, Rob, I think, who's in the process of trying to sort out his flat projection into a spherical projection. My understanding is you basically need like GIS software and some expertise in order to make that happen. But I am open to being told wrong and somebody finding out that there's a way to do it because I'm super curious about it. My plan kind of as stands is I'm eventually going to get my map to where I'm happy with it. And then there is a custom globe maker in the UK that you can send your map to and they will make a globe for you that's accurate. Like it's properly put together and beautifully hand painted and stuff like that. And so my plan is to do that one day, but it's gonna take money. They are not a cheap object to have, which, you know, makes sense for that level of custom work. So I am going to have to save up my dollars, which is fine. I do not mind. Custom art is very much worth paying for, in my humble opinion. And I would say that even if I wasn't someone who did it for a living. I think we all need to pay our artists. The world is a much happier place with them than it would be without them. Alright, that's one set of mountains. We got another set up here. Let's do them next. Yeah, I think that that would probably work. I think you're right, Gary. It just hasn't been something that has really come up for me. I know that there was someone in the mapping group who was also attempting to convert a physical globe. Like they had found an old globe at a garage sale or something and were attempting to kind of sand it down and smooth it out and then paint on it. I haven't seen an update on that project in a while, but I'd be super curious to know how it went. I would definitely follow that with some interest. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, no, they're politics. Um, Definitely. They're just like the biggest things that I shouldn't have interrupted by things that aren't rivers. So they went in first. There's not a ton of geography on this map. It's largely windswept plains and deserts. So the mountains and the rivers are kind of the defining features. And then there's a fair amount of text that'll be added on after in Photoshop, just delineating what kingdoms and stuff like that live where. It's amazing how much faster this goes when my hands don't suck. This is the third time I've attempted to do this map. My hands were just so shaky last week with this med change that it was not going okay. The only part that was good was the coastline. Shaky hands are brilliant for coastlines, let me tell you. Alright, those are our mountain ranges. And these are our dunes. Yeah, river. River, river, river. Alright, that's in place. References. Alright. Moving to a much finer pen. Actually, pouring myself another cup of coffee. I think you understand the concept of coffee. You just don't like coffee. I honestly drink it more out of habit than I do out of any desire for stimulus or what have you. What did I say I was doing for pen? 003? 003. Alright. Oh yeah, there's beaches. Maybe let's do the beaches first. Beaches are going to be a 005. The summer berry blend sounds lovely. I went off coffee for about the first 3 weeks that Dave was gone just because I changed how I was eating, and the stuff that I would normally take in my coffee in the morning I wasn't allowed to have anymore. So I was like, oh well, you know, coffee is now boring. I'm not going to drink it. But then I discovered that I can have something else which tastes just about as good and is better for me. So I'm back to drinking it. But I'm in part drinking it because that's part of my morning routine. Is Dave is typically getting off work when I'm getting going for my day. So I'll make a pot of coffee and he'll make a pot of coffee and then we'll have coffee together, which we would normally do in the mornings when he's home. So it's just a really nice kind of attempt at continuity of our habits together when we're not together. So I drink a lot of tea though. I still have a rather impressive tea collection, and it's something that, especially in the evenings, I will have in preference just for flavor. Alright, Stranded Cove. How far are you? You come down to about here. You start about here. Oh man, my life would be so different without microns, you guys. My heart's the microns. Gary, did I ever get you to try the Victoria blend by Silk Road, the tea? It's one of the first teas actually grown in Canada. It's grown on Vancouver Island in BC. And they blend it with berries and vanilla. And it's really quite something. It's a black tea though, so there's definitely caffeine in it. Alright, those are the beaches. There is a little mountain over here that we missed. Do, 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 do. There we go. Alright, now we're looking at grass. So for grass, I'm going to a 003. Have you tried Lady Grey tea, Laura? There's a really good one at David's. If that's a thing you feel like you might want to try. I love it. It's lovely. That sounded very redundant. My apologies. I think in many ways a color map is easier than a black and white map, Gary. I think you're absolutely right. With black and white, there's a lot more of a struggle, particularly at certain distances, to represent biomes symbolically that you wouldn't actually be able to see at this kind of scale out. So like I'm trying to represent grass and plains here now, this next section I'm going to be working on. But you wouldn't see grass the way that I'm going to be representing it from this distance. You would see that there is, you know, color change. So, hence my decision to move to a much lighter pen, because the lines will be much finer, and hopefully provide more of a texture than like an outright symbol. It's particularly tricky because I use the same kind of mark, like just little tiny lines, in a different pen to indicate trees. So trying to kind of balance the most effective way to use my marks when you have really a limited repertoire of marks that are going to work in the aesthetic that you're building. But I find fantasy cartography is a really interesting mix of like obvious symbols. Like my mountains don't actually look realistic. They're far too stylized to make for a realistic map in any way. But we understand them to mean mountains. And so I'm hoping these little grass-like ticks are going to do the same thing. We'll understand them to mean plains, because that would be great. Molly cannot have my pens. Molly cannot afford my pens. I was outside the front of the house on Friday loading up the car to go to Nerdly, and one of my neighbors from the other ends of the queue was talking to somebody else in the front of the house, and she was like, "Oh, where are you going? What are you doing?" And I was explaining, and then she's like, "Oh, well, I have to do this and that, the next thing." And one of the things was she had to go pick up her fabric, because I guess she sews. And got talking a little bit about like her fabric stash and how excited she is, but you know, she has all of it. She's never sure she's going to use it all. And I said, I can kind of relate. I think I have about 500 pens on my desk. And I don't know that it's quite 500, but I'm well over 200 for sure. Because I have my Copic markers here, 2 sets of 75, and then I have my giant pen block that's holding, just at a glance, at least 100. And then I've got my sets in the drawer and stuff. Like, I'm definitely that person that instead of stashing fabric, I stash pens. Um, they are my babies. I collect them. I want them in all the colors, even though I primarily use black. So that's kind of a thing. Nerdly was amazing. Oh my goodness, you guys. I had such a great time. We were at a different location this year. I think it's called Camp Rehoboth. It's on Gull Lake, so just outside of like Lacombe and Red Deer, near Rimby. It is a Christian Bible camp. The location is a Christian Bible camp that was specifically founded with the mandate of providing access to a camp experience for those with physical and psychological disabilities that would normally preclude them being able to go to a summer camp. So the entire place is wheelchair accessible. Everything is beautifully made, brightly lit, just so thoughtfully designed in terms of people being able to get around and do things. Um, is absolutely just incredible in terms of being physically inclusive of spaces. And I am completely happy that our money is going to supporting their work if that's the level of detail and care that they're using to provide spaces for their campers. Like, there was a covered over gazebo that was huge that had a whole bunch of picnic tables that inside was a fire pit, so you could actually like have a fire and not be in the rain, which we all did. We maxed out that fire. It was so good. Um, there were like nice field areas where you could play sports. There were like the circus performer people brought their stuff out. So I got to watch people practicing with the fire whip and like the flaming juggling batons and stuff. So that was really cool. It was an absolutely fantastic space. And as far as I know, we're going back next year and possibly for the foreseeable future, which is like just the best nerdly news ever. One of the things that was super great about this year is we had a lot of space that we could branch out into for playing different games. And that really allowed for some fantastic LARPing situations because we weren't, being shushed by the board gaming groups or being restricted to really small spaces to play, like in somebody's cabin if the cabin was unoccupied. So I actually got to play in a couple of LARPs this year where I was comfortable and had an absolutely incredible experience with two of the games. One was called Will That Be All? It was run by my friend Kim Lamb, who is a genius at running small format LARPs. I really appreciate the work that she does with that for the community. The premise of the game is that you're servants in a British manor house in between World War I and World War II. And the game is played in 3 acts. Each act takes place on New Year's Eve of a particular year. And the game is all about building and maintaining relationships. So you get your character, and the character card tells you about who you are and how your life has been impacted, usually by the First World War. And then it also tells you who you are likely to sleep with. And it's interesting because it makes a designation about who you're likely to sleep with, but it doesn't actually define your sexual orientation, which I thought was a really neat separation. Because I think that was more true in the time than it is now. Now we really focus on orientation as opposed to just who you're sleeping with. And the game is about making connections, both like platonic and romantic ones. So you take your character and then you get 2 relationship cards where they say things like, I believe everything you say, or I like everything you say, but I don't necessarily believe it. You light up my life. I want to fight with you. Like just various kind of states of emotion. And so you go around the circle and you tell each other character how you feel about them. So you have 2. So like you tell one character one thing, tell another character another thing. And then you have 30 minutes to act through the scene of it being New Year's Eve. You're all in the servants' quarters. How do you celebrate together? or not celebrate together or whatever. And it was absolutely amazing. And then as each act concludes after 30 minutes, you kind of debrief with each other about how you felt the scene changed the relationships that you were forming, and then you move a couple years into the future with different tensions coming into play because it's now closer to the Second World War. And oh man, it was so powerful and just amazing. I ended up in a polyamorous V with the gardener, who was a 55-year-old man who'd been gassed in the First War, and a 19-year-old servant girl who had decided that instead of growing vegetables this time around, she was going to go and join Scotland Yard and be a spy. It was just amazing. It was absolutely incredible. And the thing about a small format LARP like that is you really end up developing strong relationships with people in a very short period of time, which I thought was really amazing. And it's a thing that I'm completely into. So that one was really great. I'd play that again in a heartbeat. And then the other one that I played was called The Quiet Year, and it's for 4 players, and it's actually a collaborative world building and cartography game. And so the premise is that you are in a small village of 60 to 80 people. There has been some kind of apocalypse, and you are attempting to rebuild in this quiet year, this one year that you know you're going to have peace. And so you decide as an individual speaking for the group on each of your turns what kind of priorities you're going to make and what you're going to build and what you're going to go explore for. And as these things are found or built or encountered, you draw them on the map. And the map is not a pretty thing by any means. It's intended for every skill level of artistry. But it's this really interesting dynamic. And the game is kind of controlled with a deck of cards, 52 cards, 1 card per week of the year, that have prompts on it. So, like, one prompt might say, you know, a stranger comes to the village, who are they and what do they want? And then you decide, because it's your turn, who they are and what they want. And then the characters, the other players at the table who also represent the village, get to react to what you're telling them. And that was really fun. I'm planning on buying a copy. It's just in pre-order right now. A friend of mine had a test version of it. I'm planning on buying a copy because I'd really like to run it for some other people. I just think it's so neat. It plays very calmly and quietly and thoughtfully, and so good. So good, so good. Yeah, Alex probably would like Nerdly. Laura, I think so. You probably would like Nerdly. It's a very, very different kind of space. I love it a lot. I find it really fortifies me to come back and live in a very conservative place. It's very social justice focused and inclusive, and that part just makes my heart so happy. I think that these grass lines are working. I know that they probably don't show up for a damn on the camera, though. They're very faint. Did I play any sit-down board games? I played King of Tokyo because I got the King Kong expansion and I really wanted to try it and see how it went. And I played... What else did I play? I didn't play a lot of board games this year. I watched a bunch of games being played. Just in and out. I did a lot of other things. Like, there was a little art jam that I participated in, and my timing was a little bit off because I took it upon myself to be cooking for Kim and Lisa. And so, because I was up well before them, I typically ended up cooking during the first section, like the breakfast gaming section. Stuff like that. So I kind of like Could have strategized my time differently, but I didn't. And I'm okay. My weekend was very much what I wanted it to be. I enjoyed cooking. The kitchen was just amazing. Um, so I have no real complaints about how any of that went down. King of Tokyo is. No, I wouldn't. Sorry, Laura, I got to interrupt myself. It was not more events, fewer games. Not by any stretch. There were so many more board games, so many more tables. Like, I just didn't focus on that. I'm not as big of a board gamer as I am as a LARPer. Like, I don't want to. I have a hard time learning games in front of new people too. It's something that more. Oh, I thought you meant for the event in total. Sorry, I misunderstood. But there are more people trying to do more things. Like Kim Lamb ran another seminar during supper, and Kim Johnson held a crochet choose your own adventure thing that used dice. Like people are trying to do more things inwardly, and I think that that's super cool. But yeah, I'm not as much of a board gamer as some people, so that's fine for me. Um, King of Tokyo is like Yahtzee if you were Rubber Suit Monsters. It plays with these beautiful giant chunky dice that are a ton of fun to roll because of how they sound. And you basically use something like Yahtzee combinations to determine how you deal damage and how you heal and how you score points. And it's fun. I really love it because it's easy to learn. It's a good pickup game. Like you can socialize while playing it because the rules aren't difficult to follow. And the turns move quickly, so I don't find it boring at all, ever. Um, and I like that it's not boring. I think it's probably my first favorite game to play with a group because it's easy to teach and it's easy to learn. And then it's just a very social experience. My second favorite, like, socializing group game is Catan, just because you can very much carry on a conversation and still play your turn with Settlers of Catan. Monster powers are good. I enjoyed them. The King of Tokyo thing is, or the King Kong expansion is really interesting because you get a copy of the Tokyo Tower and another tower. I forget which other one now. Um, and if you're in Tokyo, you can choose to roll a particular combination. I think you need 4 ones. And each time you succeed in doing that while you're in Tokyo, you can build a section of this tower. And if you succeed in building all 3 or 4 sections of the tower, you win the game. Like it's an instant win condition. But what that does is it really prevents you from focusing on dealing max damage from within Tokyo, um, which just, I like it. It changes the balance of the game quite a bit. I thought that was really cool. We also bought the Anubis expansion for King of Tokyo, which I have to admit is my absolute favorite expansion so far. It adds a d4 to the game that corresponds to curse cards, which makes the dice rolls a lot more involved um, in terms of benefits and detractions. And again, it slows the game down a little bit, but it makes it way more interactive, and that is super fun. I picked up the Cthulhu expansion. I think it would play better with King of New York, which I don't own. But we did try it once, and that was kind of neat. It has a really neat mechanic for allowing rerolls and healing and stuff. Like you collect cultists, and then you can turn in your cultists for spare hearts and stuff. So it was yeah, I know you have King of New York. Um, yeah, honestly, Laura, King of New York, or sorry, King of Tokyo, totally amazing. Um, Definitely could be played by a 6 or an 8-year-old, no problem. Especially if they read fairly well. I also highly recommend a board game called Ticket to Ride. Ticket is a really good option for dealing with younger kids as well. Apples to Apples is a good one. We used to play that with Lucas a lot when he was younger. Um, Sushi Go. If you get Sushi Go, I highly recommend getting the deluxe version because there's just way more cards in it, which makes it more replayable. But Sushi Go is great. It's a card passing game and it's fun, light, easy to pick up. Very, like, you can play it really strategically or you can just play it haphazardly, so really good for different age groups. Myrna was playing it with Max when he was 5 or 6, so, like, you know, good for all kinds of ages. But yeah, Sushi Go is pretty fabulous. I like it a lot. What else is good for kids? We were playing Quarriors with Katie when she was probably 8. I think 6 would be too young for it because there's a fair amount of math to track. It's a little bit like Magic the Gathering in that you summon creatures, but each of your creatures are dice that have like stats on them. It's pretty fun. I like it because there's so many different colors of dice and it just makes my little gemstone happy heart. I get to pretend I'm a dragon with a giant horde of shiny things, so that's always a benefit. Codenames is really fun. I enjoy Codenames quite a bit. I'm super into Sagrada right now. I don't know how good it would be for younger kids, but I absolutely love it as an adult game. It's so pretty and just lovely to play. Takenoko is good. That's a panda gardening, bamboo growing game. I dig that one quite a bit. What else is good? There's a Settlers of Catan for kids. Honestly, Gary is probably the better resource for this than me. He owns so many more games and has done way more research on it. Robo Rally, I don't know, man. I have a challenge with Robo Rally as an adult. Don't get me wrong, I love the game. Robo Rally is amazing. But if you have trouble telling your right from your left and you don't do well under pressure, it is not going to be a good game for you. It's very timer specific, so not everyone does well with timers. I know sometimes I struggle with them. But yeah. There's a tabletop with Will Wheaton. Do you know it, Laura? On the Geek and Sundry YouTube channel? Yeah, so they do reviews all the time. So totally a good resource for that kind of thing. I think Gary follows one called Shut Up and Sit Down as well. That they do reviews as well. I don't know like how many kids ones they're doing for reviews, but that could be a thing. There is one, when Gary comes back, I'll have to ask him what it is. It might even be called What It Is, where you have to like try to talk in circles around a concept and then you kind of mark it off as you get closer. That is the worst description ever. Please forgive me. But it's pretty fabulous. I enjoy it quite a bit. I've only played it twice, but both times it was with Gary and Mike and TJ. I really liked it. I would play it again. Might not be the best with kids, but it's pretty fun for an adult. Gary, what was the name of the game that we played with Mike and TJ and Lucas where you had the concept and then you had to try and figure it out using the question marks? I don't know if that is at all a good enough descriptor for you to recognize what I'm talking about. But it had the big board of like, it's a goat, or not a goat, but like an animal or a plant or whatever, and you had to try to communicate it. Was it? Look at me go. And by that I mean I had no idea until you sat down. It's a really good game. Oh, I think my 003 is dying. Don't die, Pen, I need you. I do not have the ability to run into Edmonton to get another one of you right now. Come on. Yeah, the Harry Potter version looks like fun. Oh boy. Okay. I think that is where I'm going to call it for today. See if I can close up so you guys can see all of the grass that I just did. Yeah. Teeny tiny ticks. Many, many, many of them. Alright, so I've still got coastlines to work on for this, and do the compass rose, do my water detail, and then into Photoshop it goes to get all of the lettering done. So, thank you very much for hanging out with me. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and we will do it again next week. That is my plan. Thank you for hanging out, and yeah, if you need me, I'm around. Let me know. Have a good one, my friends. Feel free to have another evening session. Okay, I will take it under advisement. Maybe I'll switch my time or start doing 2. Who knows? It could be good for me. All right, I'm on my way out. You guys have a good day. Love you lots. Bye.